This is Newsroom. Hello and welcome from Johannesburg in South Africa. I'm Lindor Mel. The show is live and broadcast from our studios in Auckland Park. We're also streaming live on YouTube with the entire show available on our YouTube channel. As the country celebrated National Women's Day yesterday, we've dedicated today's show to the many mothers, wives and daughters of our country. The ANC Women's League elected Minister Batlhabile Dlamini as its new president over the weekend. We look at what lies ahead for the organisation, and since the league says it will push for a female ANC leader, our question of the day is South Africa ready for a female president? Send us your views on Twitter to @SABC Newsroom. Then the African Women's Leadership Summit recently took place, and we see how this event is inspiring women to groom the next generation of female leaders. We end with Beauty with a Purpose as we're joined by the CEO and two finalists of the Mrs. South Africa organisation. But first, here's a look at the day's news. PRASA says it cannot yet comment on the Public Protector's leaked report. The National Rail Agency has, however, questioned some of its content following an investigation. Thuli Madonsela is expected to release her recommendations this week after a 3-year probe into PRASA. It's been reported that the report reveals that the agency's ACT CEO, Lucky Montana, signed off in dodgy tenders and took rides on the Blue Train with female companions. Montana was dismissed last month before his contract ended because of his tense relationship with the board. President Jacob Zuma has listed the advances women have made in South Africa. Zuma was addressing over 20,000 women from all 9 provinces at the main Women's Day event held in Sasolburg in the Free State yesterday. The president says South Africa can only succeed economically if women participate at every level of the economy.
Economically, as a country, women must participate at both the micro and macro levels of the economy. They must not be relegated to micro operations and the informal economy, as has been the case. Economic freedom for women is imperative, hence the various laws we are putting in place to make the socio-economic development of women possible.
The shortage of fuel in Gauteng could continue for at least a week, so the Fuel Retailers Agency has warned. Pumps at numerous filling stations in the province are reported to have run dry due to problems at 2 major plants. The association says a Durban refinery has shut down for plant maintenance. Disruptions have also broken out at South Africa's largest oil refinery. Lesotho nationals in South Africa have again called for the scrapping of borders. The Free Movement of Basotho group is calling for their country's incorporation into South Africa. They're also calling for the SADC Free Trade Area and SADC Free Movement Treaty to be implemented. Meanwhile, today, members of the South African Development Community Commission of Inquiry into Lesotho's security will be sworn in the capital this year. The commission was established in July to probe the country's security following the death of the country's former army commander. More than 1,000 migrants have been arrested on European borders over the weekend. Meanwhile, British Foreign Secretary Philip Hammond has warned that the number of migrants entering the European Union is a threat to the Union's quality of life. His comments are in response to an increase in migrant attempts to reach Britain from France. This year, more than 2,000 migrants have lost their lives trying to cross the Mediterranean to reach Europe. And Greece is closer to unlocking a fresh €86 billion rescue package after negotiations ended yesterday. This as the country still hopes to conclude bailout talks with international creditors by tomorrow. The country's third bailout in 5 years has faced fierce opposition from countries such as Finland, which has threatened to withhold its support for a new deal. Now, to our top story today. This weekend, the Minister of Social Development, Patabile Dlamini, was elected as the new president of the ANC Women's League. The League's long-delayed 12th National Congress turned out to be one of the most contested in recent times. Minister Dlamini is now faced with the tough task of reviving the organization, and she's also expected to push for women to lead the ANC at the upcoming 2017 elective conference. Now, here to help us unpack it all, we're joined in the studio today by political analyst Professor Susan Boyson. We're also joined by the Director of Public Affairs of the research giant Ipsos, Marie Harris. Ladies, I thank you for joining us today. I'm happy to see you. We're all females straight after Women's Day and our Women's Day celebrations. But Susan, if I can just start with you. We see now Mr. Dlamini in the top post of the ANC Women's League. Does this mean now the organization is turning a new leaf?
Well, that seriously remains to be seen. The Women's League for the ANC has gone through a very, very rough period. The branches and the regions really struggled to get their preparations off the ground. To get to this conference, it was delayed by around 2 years, several postponements. We see more members and more branches, but really massive dysfunctionality on the ground. And I think really that is where even the new ANC Women's League president, Patabile Dlamini, is missing much other point. Yes, it's great if there's a competent candidate who can be pushed as for potentially president of the country, but the Women's League is falling short because if it's not active on the ground. There's so much facilitating legislation in place. There's so much guarantees of human rights. But women need that help on the ground to advance beyond the barriers, to feel empowered, to feel supported. And I think the Women's League would actually do South African women a much bigger favor if they go to grassroots campaigns and struggle with women on the ground on the daily issues of poverty, unemployment that affect women even more than men, never mind how desperate it is for both genders. And on top of that, gender violence, domestic violence, those are the issues that women on the ground face every day. And the Women's League really, they can push the palace politics and have coups there, try to have the coups there, but they must not forget about the struggles on the ground.
That's definitely right. Susan, before we go into the further politics of the Women's League, Marie, maybe this is where I can bring you in. Ipsos last week released a report saying that a lot of South Africans aren't happy with the way that especially violence against women are being dealt with. What does your research show? How are South Africans feeling about issues like this?
Well, less than half of South Africans are giving the government credit for the way they handle issues with regard to violence against women and children. That's in spite of the many, many years we had of the campaign every year at the end of the year, November, December, the 16 days of activity against violence against women and children. What is more interesting, if we look at those results in more detail, only 15%, 1/5, say that the government is doing really well on this issue. So the others sit somewhere on the sideline and say the government is really not doing enough. And I think that links to Susan's point about the fact that women are faced with very serious issues on the grassroots level. But, you know, and then we start talking about big things in the country about a woman president and so on. I think the question to ask whether the country is ready for a woman president is a paternalistic one. I think the country is ready for a competent, compassionate, honest president, regardless of whether it's a man or a woman.
What do you have to say on that, Susan? A female president, lots of talks. We even see that Minister Dlamini, she has a few names on a list of hers. We're talking here about Baleka Mbete, that's a possible candidate. We're talking about Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. What does this all mean? How does this all look?
These are certainly the two top names. But what I find even more interesting, and then back to the names, is that the Women's League, they sound very liberated, push for a candidate, but they have been waiting for President Jacob Zuma to open the door. They were on the record with seriously reactionary statements about South Africa not being ready for a woman president until President Zuma, who is really, all these women and the newcomers in the League leadership, they're all Zumas, part of the Zuma grouping in the ANC, who have a bit of in-house infighting, yes. But the Women's League waited for President Zuma last year, Women's Day. He made a statement that South Africa might have a women's president sooner than expected. And what did we see? Next step, ANC Women's League. A few months later, we at ANC Women's League Policy Conference, we are ready for a woman president. So they really waited for their Uber patriarch to say, it's fine, let's push for candidate. And President Zuma actually, strategically, contextually, one interprets it, he is comfortable with both these women. They are the ones who have defended him. Even last week, Angie Motshekga, the former Women's League president, said, yes, remember to defend our president in Parliament. And that is very veiled another very prominent, a really popular hero, South African woman, Thuli Madonsela. That was a veiled attack against her. So Women's League are pushing a woman president, but they've made sure the president, male, patriarch, first gives the go-ahead, and then suggest that women are in place to slip in whom he is comfortable with.
So, Marie, seeing that now we're talking about a, so to say, political go-ahead that we've gotten from the president, what are the mindsets of South Africans? Would South Africans be ready? Are we in 2015 ready, or would we be in 2017 ready for a female president?
I think this country has a long way to go, because a third of South Africans still say that South African women should be kept in their place.
Wow.
So I think that's just, you know, opening the door to that whole discussion about whether the equality that is guaranteed in the Constitution really manifests itself on the ground. You know, that's the big issue. I think that on the one side, the Constitution says women and men are equal and they should have the same chances, but in reality that doesn't happen. Susan referred earlier to women that are more unemployed than men, and in actual fact about 40% of women are unemployed and only 27% of men. So there's a huge difference. Already South African employers, when employing people, they favor men. And then when we send our children to school, a lot of people believe boys have more rights to education than a girl. You know, those things are just all showing to in a very, very unequal society.
Yes, definitely, and that is definitely concerning in 2015 that we are faced with challenges like this. But Marie, tell me, where does most of the resistance come from? Is it because of our cultural beliefs that we still believe that women, you know, shouldn't be exactly where men are, if we can put it like that?
It has a lot to do with our cultural beliefs. It has a lot to do with how we bring up our children. You know, a lot of people will bring up their male children differently from what they bring up their female children. It is also more manifesting itself amongst males. They feel, I think, a little bit probably threatened, but they feel stronger about these issues that women should be kept in their place. But every time I see these results, I am so amazed about how many women agree with these things. And then if we really have to talk about where does it come from, deep rural areas definitely, and to link that to party politics, very much agreeing with the areas where most of the ANC support comes from.
Susan, what do you have to say on this? I know we've touched now specifically on the ANC, but looking to 2017, what are we going to see with other opposition parties in terms of leadership? Are we going to see any really strong female leaders rise from other opposition parties, or is it too early to tell?
Well, we know the Democratic Alliance, they've had a history, and it's much more ingrained there that women rise through the ranks. We've seen Helen Salel, Lindiwe Mazibuko, neither of them now in any rising position there, but I think that party has a reasonable record there, and Patricia de Lille comes in, so the DA is more known for pushing its women leaders to the front. The EFF, I think, is also quite male-dominated. There are a few strong women there, but they are not in that top echelon of contestation. They are a very robust party, and they have a role there, but it's not pushing through. So generally, at party political leadership level in South Africa, the women are not doing very well. But then political parties are machines that garner, construct electoral majorities. And opinion polls that show that men are higher in esteem, unfortunately, popular esteem are going to reinforce gender stereotypes because in order to gain the optimal number of votes in elections, political parties are going to push those candidates that will bring them in more votes. And if the opinion polls and Ipsos, that's very credible polling, ring true, then it doesn't bring good news for women. But we know the ANC's organization, women has had a strong reputation in the past leading. Let's forget about the Women's League in recent years, even the last decade and more. And if it comes through the party structures of the ANC, I think a woman candidate will have great acceptance. But, of course, many other qualities are going to come into it, even if South Africa gets to the point that more people, and ANC recognizes that more people want to move away from the recent period of type of ANC male chauvinist governance. Even with those conditions figured into it, people are going to look at what qualities do individual candidates bring to the table. But a lot of lobbying, a lot of campaigning goes into branch and regional elections in South Africa, and those are the ones that push through the delegates to the National Elective Conference of the ANC. That will be towards the end of 2017. But that apparatus in the ANC is such that they can pull off either a male or a female candidate, and I think South Africans will follow what the party endorses and profiles. The ANC has massive resources to do campaigning and to profile its own candidates. So either male or female could be pulled off credibly with the population by the ANC.
Marie, maybe just quickly moving on to something else. I heard something interesting over the radio this weekend that suggests, research that suggests that more girls are now enrolling to universities. Yes. Tell us more about that, and what does this mean then looking forward, you know, if we want to say looking forward to the future of South Africa?
Well, as we said already, I think South Africa is a bit far behind when it comes to equality. But every year, if we look at the matric results, the girls are doing a lot better than the boys. I just think that also at the age of 18, girls are more responsible than boys. I think that's just a manifestation of that. Therefore, more girls are going into university. But I think we must take that a little bit further and not only look at whether they are enrolling at university, but whether they're completing their studies, what contribution they then make to society. But that, I think, is a very good thing. If you think about, well, 100 years ago, there were very, very few women in universities in South Africa. So that is definitely a trend that I think is a very positive trend.
Definitely. Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning, Professor Susan Boyson. She's a political analyst, just talking to us about the ANC Women's League National Conference and the new elected president there. We were also joined by Marie Harris from Ipsos. Ladies, have a good public holiday.
Thank you.
Now, President Jacob Zuma has told a Women's Day event that women have made great strides, but he said they still face challenges and that the focus should now be on ensuring that they participate fully in the economy. The president was speaking in Zamdela Township in Sasolburg, where he delivered the keynote address on Women's Day.
A festive mood as the country celebrates its women. The turning point, the historic 1956 Women's March to the Union Buildings. 59 years on, the struggle for emancipation continues. Female representation in the public service has reached 41%, double that of the private sector.
Women representation in the National Assembly moved from a mere 2.7% pre-1994 to the current 41%. More importantly, women lead the country in parliament, with both the Speaker and the chairperson of the National Council of Provinces being women. The representation of women in cabinet following the 1994 general election stands at 43%, with deputy ministers at 45.9%.
The report by the president is clear that success depends on women.
If we are to succeed economically as a country, women must participate at both the micro and macro levels of the economy. They must not be relegated to micro operations and the informal economy, as has been the case. Economic freedom for women is imperative, hence the various laws we are putting in place to make the socio-economic development of women possible.
The strides that the country has made in reducing HIV infections significantly impacts on life expectancy. Women are the most vulnerable to the global pandemic.
These wonderful results, as announced in the report, should not blind us into complacency. The fight against HIV and AIDS continues. The fight against the stigma and the support for all infected and affected by the virus should also continue.
While progress has been recorded in areas to advance women, they still face discrimination at work and other areas in society. Mzwani Lembej, SABC News, Johannesburg.
Well, it's now time to take a look at what you're saying on social media. But before we do that, yesterday South Africans celebrated Women's Day, and this year the theme was United in Moving South Africa Forward. Let's take a look at some of your tweets that have been coming in on social media. Remember, you can send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. There we see the first tweet coming in, says, all the ladies around this world, hope you enjoyed your day. Hashtag Women's Month. Yes, it's important to remember we celebrate the women of this country throughout the month. Then, happy belated Women's Day. Women, we men love you. Just wanted to use that belated hashtag. Well, thank you very much. To all the ladies, happy Women's Day. Hashtag fighters, hashtag leaders, hashtag lovers. And here's another tweet that says, women are only recognized only on Women's Days. Things will never change. They will forever be the same if we don't change our mindsets. That's your views coming in on Twitter. Today's picture of the day comes from David R. Lee, captioned, nearly 100 people gathered on the anniversary of hashtag Mike Brown, deaf for a peaceful protest. Yes, we know the protest took place in the US yesterday, and there you'll see that picture coming in. Now, let's take a look at the front pages from around the globe. Starting in New York, the Wall Street Journal says Afghan refugees landed yesterday on the island of Kos after crossing from Turkey. The United Nations has called the situation total chaos. Staying in New York, the International New York Times reports dozens of Christian civilians are missing and are believed to be captives of the Islamic State extremist group after it seized their town in central Syria. And a lot of news coming from the US today. The US today, of course, reports that the police came under heavy gunfire last night, sending both officers and demonstrators scrambling for cover during protests marking the one-year anniversary of the fatal shooting of Michael Brown by a police officer. And that's also the tweet pick of the day that you saw earlier. Well, it's time to take a break. We'll be back in a bit.
Scientists are confident they have found the source of the outbreak, a bat colony in southeastern Guinea. Meanwhile, a U.S. drug manufacturer has announced that it has started clinical trials of an experimental Ebola vaccine.
And this is the first examination in the country to have that high level of quality. And for us as a province to be #1 is indeed exciting.
Another test victory. Victory number 2 in this series, punched away for 4.
Brent crude oil that we import for our fuel falling below $50 a barrel today. Now that's for the first time in about 5.5 years.
The Lagos skyline is a static scene, but on the streets of Nigeria's capital, change is afoot. This is now Africa's biggest economy.
For all your business news, stay tuned to your favorite channel, SABC News, at 1 Monday to Friday.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. Now, it's the 21st century and most countries allow freedom and opportunity for all races and sexes to achieve any goal they set out for themselves. We see this as women have taken up senior roles within large corporations. But we still have a long way to go, and one summit that has shed some light on how we can is the African Women's Leadership Summit that took place in Kenya last week. Joining us in studio today is international speaker Elizabeth Ngozi, who spoke at the summit. Ngozi is also the CEO of a non-profit organization, Africa Tikkun, in the USA. This organization invests in the development of disadvantaged children from early infancy through young adulthood and into the world of work. Elizabeth, thank you so much. You're here from the US. Welcome to South Africa.
Thank you so much. I just want to clarify that the summit actually took place in Wanderers Club in Lovo last week. No problem. That's okay.
So sorry about that.
But thank you for having me.
Nonetheless, we're happy it took place, and we're happy there is this focus on women's roles in leadership and so on. If we can just start with, I think, one of the most important questions, and we even touched on it a bit earlier in the previous interview, this huge type of inequality that we see, you know, that still in 2015 persists, statistics showing that we don't have enough women in leadership roles. What is the summit saying about specifically that?
Sure. So what was exciting about our summit is that we had a number of really great speakers, leaders, including Judy Nokedi, who I'm sure many people know from Tourvest. And then we decided to have 2 men, one of whom is Ravi Naidu, who was the executive director for economic development and tourism at the City of Johannesburg, and the chairman of McCann, South Africa. And they said 2 things I thought were really, really important, and I think it's important for us to hear from men. They said, as women, if you really want to have a place at the table, you need to have to figure out how to get into the inner circle. And one of the ways of doing so is finding mentors and finding sponsors who can advocate for you on your behalf. And so for me, I've had a mentor for the last 20 years, a gentleman by the name of Tom Padula. He's an 80-year-old Greek-American man. We look nothing alike. We have nothing really in common, but he's the person who I go to when I'm trying to figure out what to do with my career. He's the person I go to who can advocate on my behalf when I need, you know, sort of an inner person perspective or someone to say, Liz is okay, let's bring her in to do this and the other. So women definitely need that. While I think it's really important for us to have other women as mentors, we also need to find those people who are in the inner circle, who have those conversations and are really at the tables where we aren't.
Yes. Then looking at the summit, also specifically focusing on African leadership, what is it that we see across the continent in terms of women in leadership roles?
So, I mean, the good thing is we're seeing more women, and I have this study from DWA, I don't know which way it's showing it, but which I just got last week, and this focuses specifically on South Africa, but what we're finding is here we are on a continent where we have African women who are leaders of countries, right?
Yes.
We also lead in terms of the number of women parliamentarians. Mm-hmm. So we actually do have women leaders. And if you look at the percentage of women who sit on boards in South Africa, it's actually greater than in the U.S. So, yeah, it is.
Wow.
That's actually from a Grant Thornton
study. Are we
study.
talking from a private sector? Or
That's private sector. Private sector, absolutely. I have a study. I used it for an event I spoke in. But what we're finding is that women are finding their voices, they're finding their places, and they're working together. And I think that if we're able to kind of see what our commonalities are and work together and see that we're not women in Uganda, women in South Africa and Kenya, that we actually have this Pan-African sort of opportunity to work together and share best practices, I think we really can go very far. The other thing I think is really important is that technology is enabling us to have a much greater impact and for our voices to be heard and for us to collaborate more effectively. And I think that I really am very excited about what technology is doing to facilitate more women in leadership. But of course, we still have a really long way to go. But I think it's really imperative that those of us women leaders who have platforms, who are in positions to help bring others along with us, really do need to take that as responsibility and to share opportunities with those who are younger or who are less senior than us.
Elizabeth, you spoke about women finding their voices. Just tell us at the summit, some of the speakers, what is the advice that they gave to women specifically in business? Because sometimes we do have this idea that we need to be a kind of a pit bull figure, or we need to know how to balance a leadership role with this type of motherly side that we have. What is the advice that they give to women who really want to make it big within the corporate world?
Well, first of all, it's let your voice be heard, right? And I think that this is a case we see across the world. And in fact, Harvard Business School studied this. What they found was that they had a group of women who'd come through their program. And these are women who obviously by the time they get to Harvard Business School are pretty rock stars. And they found that they lagged their male counterparts significantly in terms of participation, raising their hands, and that accounted for 50% of their grade. And despite that, they didn't raise their hands. So if you're thinking women who are already so accomplished, right, and are seen to be aggressive, can't even do that, imagine the rest of us. And so one of the things that came out of the conversation in our summit was the importance of us raising our hands, letting our voices be heard, and really feeling comfortable to step up. So in a meeting, don't just sit there and wait for everybody else to speak. In a meeting, let your ideas be heard. Make sure that you share your ideas with your leadership. I have to tell you, Judy Nokedi was great about sharing that, and she's someone who's definitely had a very, very successful career, and it's because she's willing to be aggressive and share what she knows. I mean, of course, you have to temper that, right? I mean, because you also have to understand the environment you're in. But certainly, I think it makes sense for us to have our voice heard. But we shouldn't forget the fact that we are women. And I know that sounds controversial, but when I was starting out my career in the early 90s, the women who are in leadership had to really look like men. They had to sort of comport themselves the way that men do. And I feel that we don't necessarily have to do so anymore, and we've seen that. And so you can still be feminine, and you can still be a mother. You can still balance everything that's going on in your life. But definitely bring the best that you can to your job.
Elizabeth, just to quickly end off on, just tell us about your organization, how they're helping young women. And you mentioned that you'll be in Limpopo tomorrow?
That's correct. So Africa Tikkun is an amazing organization. It's been around for 20 years. I've been with it for the last year. My job is in the U.S. to support the efforts that we have in terms of fundraising and finding partners. And our organization works with 19,000 children and youth in 5 townships throughout the country. And our whole reason for being is helping the young kids that we work with all the way into young adulthood to become productive citizens of the future. And so we have community centers where they're able to get homework support, to assume leadership roles through sports and so on and so forth. And I'm proud to say that while we do serve both boys and girls, over 60% of our beneficiaries are girls. 70% of our staff, the majority of whom are from the townships we serve, are women. And of the 3 international offices we have, two of them are led by women, including myself. And so that's great. It's a great testament to how we operate as an organization and the fact that we're empowering women and girls to seek leadership. I will be going to Limpopo tomorrow. In fact, I forgot to mention that I'm here at the invitation of the U.S. Embassy South Africa, who's had me here for the last couple of weeks speaking to different women's groups and learning from different women's groups around the issues that are important to us, around leadership, entrepreneurship. And so I'm going to be in Limpopo doing that with groups of women all the way through Thursday this week.
Well, Elizabeth, we thank you for the great work that you're doing here in South Africa.
Thank you so much.
Please continue to do so.
Thank you, and happy Women's Day month to you and your audience.
Same to you. All right. Well, over the weekend, Social Development Minister Bathabile Dlamini was elected as the new president of the ANC Women's League, making the third most powerful woman in the ANC after National Chairperson Paleka Mbete and Deputy Secretary General Jessie Duarte. Now, let's take a look at what you have to say about this on social media. Please remember to send us your views on Twitter at SABC Newsroom. There we can see at ANC Women's League, I'm really happy about the new elected president, Bathabile Dlamini. She's the right woman for the job and I believe in her. That's some positive messages coming through over there. So ANC Women's League is ready for a female president. I somehow cannot imagine Mrs. Dlamini leading the party, let alone South Africa. Those are your views coming in on Twitter. And there we see a picture of the newly elected ANC Women's League President, Bathabile Dlamini. It was announced late on Saturday night that she will be taking over the reins from Andrew Chekha, of course. Now, today's tweet of the day comes from Dawn Incorporated. There you'll see, he says, freedom cannot be achieved unless the women have been emancipated from all forms of oppression. Hashtag Mandela quote, hashtag Women's Day. Now, let's take a look at what is happening on our Newsroom Facebook page today. You'll see that EFF members dismantled and set alight a tent used by controversial snake pastor in Shoshangoe, north of Pretoria yesterday. The political party had wanted to force the pastor to eat rodents and snakes like he allegedly did with some of his followers. We know the police are still monitoring the situation in that area. Then Zimbabwe wants Cecil the Lion's killer extradited from the United States. And Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe yesterday marked the 70th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Nagasaki by renewing his commitment to a Japan free from nuclear weapons. For more news updates, remember you can search for SABC Newsroom on Facebook, or alternatively, you can just look for our website. Just type in www.sabc.com/news. It's time now to take a break. We'll be back in a bit.
Is only dance that you can't find anywhere in the world. It's purely South African.
Melting plastic and manipulating it into his desired image.
The whole idea was not just to do a normal portraiture, you know. I wanted to do something that will tell a bit of story.
He may be gone, but Masonda's voice will continue to serenade music lovers for a long time. Join Refula Muila on your one-stop art and entertainment show every Saturday on Afro Showbiz News at 7:30 p.m.
Welcome back. You're watching Newsroom on SABC News. We continue with our Women's Day broadcast today, a day after National Women's Day has been celebrated. Now, married, sophisticated and beautiful, these are the words to describe Mrs. South Africa. In April, the Mrs. South Africa Top 25 finalists for 2015 were announced at Emperor's Palace. But Mrs. South Africa is more than just a pageant. It's a journey of women empowerment and standing out as ambassadors for all South African women. Joining us in studio today is Joni Johnson, CEO of the Mrs. South Africa organization, and two finalists, Marlene Nike and Candice Abrams. Well, ladies, I must say I feel honored this morning. Wow. Joni, if I can just start with you. I cannot believe it's been a year.
I know. We were just saying, we actually crowned our winner last year in August, and I was just saying I can't believe that it, as you say, has been a year. Time really flies. This year we're crowning in October. But yeah, it's an honor to be here celebrating one of my favorite days of the year, Women's Day. And thank you for having us.
Jenny, let's just start. I mean, it seems every year this Mrs. South Africa, we don't always like to call it a pageant, but your organization that actually runs it, it just gets bigger and better. Where are we this year and how much has it grown?
you know, I was saying the other day that Mrs. South Africa, we don't just grow, we literally double every year, and it's really such an honor and so rewarding to really just see the fruits of your hard work, you know, that you've put in over the past 5 years. It's now my 5th year as a CEO. And it's really incredible. You know, I'm so passionate about women and passionate about what I do. And, you know, it's an absolute privilege to work with the best of South Africa's married women in the country. So.
Okay, Marlene and Candace, it blows my mind to think that you are mothers, you are wives, you are businesswomen. It's just really incredible. If I can start with you, why the decision to enter and get involved with all of this?
I think I always, and I was saying this as part of my semi-final interview as well, I always felt like an ugly duckling, and I think I blossomed a lot later in life. And I always looked at other women and thought, oh, I'd love to be beautiful, I'd love to be eloquent, I'd love to be self-confident. And for me, it was a matter of pushing myself to do it. And for me, this journey has really been like my finishing school. And I'm so proud to be with Mrs. South Africa. It's absolutely been a journey for me discovering myself. So that's why I entered.
Candace, what makes this kind of journey, like we describe it, different to any other pageants or different to a Miss South Africa competition?
Okay, firstly, it is for married women, and it's such a wonderful journey. I think every woman needs to have this platform. We work with lovely sponsors. I get taken out of my comfort zone as a mother, you know, just to balance life, and I've got a balanced family life, my husband, my kids, and I just think it's just an amazing journey for each woman. I've started a grooming school. I groom little girls, and I'm using the platform just to help little girls be what they want to be.
Janie, we know, of course, that this organization does so much for, I know last year specifically, you did a lot for cancer. This year, who is benefiting from all of this?
Our official charity is still Cancer, the Cancer Association of South Africa. It's incredible to work with them and to really see how we make a difference, you know, and how it escalates, and really just, it's a ripple effect, you know, going into every contestant, finalists, winners, community, and each finalist also has to host a Kappa for Cancer in her community. And yes, so we still support them. And, you know, as Marlene and Candace said, you know, it's really a women empowerment journey. It's really a journey of self-discovery, and it's just such an incredible demographic to work with. You know, it's women that is married, they work, you know, they're businesswomen, they're mothers, they're wives. They're really just doing it all. And yeah, it's been an incredible journey for me as well.
I'd actually like to ask you, Candace, just talking about the support you need, and not just entering something like this, but being a woman today. I know I read a blog recently that said, you know, an older generation says that we're lucky that we have the type of husbands and fathers that we have today, that they're so involved, but we shouldn't think of it like that, because we actually are entitled to a support system like this. Do you feel the same?
Definitely. I'm blessed to actually have wonderful friends in my life. My family is very supportive of my journey and what I do. And as I said, my husband, he is a huge support system, but I like to take it on all. I like to prove that I'm Superwoman and I can do it all. And I believe we can do it all as women. You know, it's who we are. It's what we are.
So, Wally, just looking forward, what is it that you want to achieve with this journey? And yeah,
I think for me, what I'd like to take away from it when it's all over is to say I gave it my all, and that I've actually realized my potential in myself. I think that's what I'd like to take away from it. Also, you know, we've been blessed to meet really great sponsors, and I think we're going to walk lots of long journeys with them. Joni always jokes at Finale Workshop, we're going to meet our best friends through this pageant. And I think lots of us don't believe her, but I think I'm also going to take away really great friendships with lots of the ladies that I've met that are fellow finalists as well.
So this is definitely something you'd encourage all married women to enter?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And Jenny, is this something all married women can do?
Absolutely, you know. We're really about real women. We're really about the whole package. And, you know, if there's one message that I always say that I want women and married women to know is, you know, that they're smarter than they seem, they're braver than they believe, and they're more beautiful than they could ever imagine. And that is really what we stand for, is we want women to know that, they still, they can still chase their dreams even though that they are married. It's not the end of the road. And you can still achieve so much. And, to quote the late Nelson Mandela, where he says, we are, how does it go, Marlene? we are, powerful beyond measure.
Yes, exactly.
And, women must really just believe that. So that is what Mrs. South Africa stands for.
Well, what an inspiring message this morning, ladies. I wish you all the best of luck for the finals taking place in October.
Thank you so much.
Of course, you can visit the Mrs. South Africa website, Journey, that's right, for more details.
Absolutely.
And that final is taking place in October. Now, shots have been fired in Ferguson, Missouri at a protest to mark the first anniversary of the killing of unarmed black teenager Michael Brown. Here is what you had to say on Twitter on that one-year anniversary. It's always so shocking to see the level of racism that comes oozing out of the US when black people protest. Hashtag Ferguson, your views coming in. Then they may have changed police chiefs, but they haven't changed police mentality. Hashtag Ferguson. This tweet says, as I was driving home at midnight, saw cop cars lights on racing north towards Ferguson. Yes, we know the tension, or the situation was a bit tense there last night. So every year, hashtag Ferguson is going to do shots fired and start a riot and destroy their city. How about college and a job and a family life? Again, your views coming in on the one-year anniversary of Michael Brown's death. And there we see a photo on social media of the situation there. Well, now, she is a young, talented artist focused on rap and poetry, and today she's here with us on the special day to showcase her talent. She goes by the name Cassie, aka Cassie SA. Welcome to the show, Cassie, and I thank you for joining us. You're a young poet.
Yes.
Just tell me about the guts it must take to actually come onto a live show like this and deliver one of your poems.
Gosh, it's nerve-wracking. But I love it. It's my passion.
And tell us a bit more about yourself. What inspired you to do this?
Well, basically, ever since I was a little girl, like, I found comfort in poetry. And, yeah, I'm not just focused in poetry, rap as well. So, yeah, I always just use it as a comfort zone. Yeah.
So tell us about, are you involved in any studies at the moment? How old are you? Not as yet.
No, not as yet.
What do you dream about doing, though?
Oh, my goodness. Well, I'm focused on psychology, but mostly on my career as a female rapper and a poet.
And what message do you hope your poetry will convey today to the women out there and just to the people in South Africa in general?
Well, basically that you must just push for your dreams, man. Like, it doesn't matter how hard the journey is or what punches you get on the way. The end result to that is amazing.
Tell us a bit more about the poem that you performed today. I know we're going to play out with it in a bit. It's called Mama.
Yes, it's called Mama, and it's my mom being a single parent and how hard she works, and she did a good job by raising me. Yeah.
And then just tell us about your mother specifically in your life, what role she played, and how important do you think it is for young female South Africans like yourself to have good female leaders?
Gosh, I don't know. Like, I feel like my mom is a very big inspiration in my life. And yes, like, she always supports my dreams and pushes me and helps me. So I feel, and I'm very young for all of this, so I feel like, I don't know, like, I just have to do what makes me happy. That's what's important.
And just tell us about some of the female leaders that we need to see in South Africa for
oh gosh, there's quite a number, hey?
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to unfortunately have to cut it there, Cassie, but we are going to end with your poem, and here it is, Mama.
Women's Day, made specially for you. Mama, oh mama. With you, there was never drama. Mom and dad in one, single parent. Yet you were so strong. Yes, you always proved me wrong. Mama, oh mama. Hustling left and right. There was never a fight. always had my back like you watched my side. Mama, oh mama, I always shut you out and always messed up, and you were always on my side. Mama, oh mama, I hope you accept my apology, because logically, I'll try to be the best, sincerely, grieving for your forgiveness. All my mistakes were never your business, and you always gave me the proposition. And I'ma do my best to make it my mission and prove to you I'll focus and make it a submission. Mama, oh mama.